To me, it's not courage if there's no skin in the game. It's not courage if there's no sacrifice.
You need to be challenged. And you know what every citizen has the right to do is call your member, approach your member, and ask them why.
You know, every day it becomes more precedented because people then, follow his example and try to out-Trump Trump.
For me, it's bigger than a job. It's about protecting our ability to be able to speak the truth and to protect particularly Black journalists' safety to do their jobs.
And so if you canceled your subscription, my question is, where you going to put that money now?
People will still be targeting your life because they weren't doing that because they were waiting to see if you could be civil. After Charlie Kirk was killed, they were doing that because they don't like you.
It was further fueled by the fact that the man has it in for Black women. He got issues with Black men too, but they're never on display quite the way the umbrage he takes from Black women.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. Welcome home, y'all. This is episode 98 of Native Land Pod, where we give you our breakdown of all things politics and culture. We are your hosts, Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, and Andrew Gillum. Y'all, what are we getting into today?
Well, I'm excited because we have two guests coming up. Karen Atia, the former reporter for the Washington Post, and Ebony McMorris, who was quite disrespected in the White House this month by the president. So we're going to get into both of those topics with them.
Andrew, what you got?
Well, I think we've gotta revisit, or rather visit for the first time on the show, what went down with Jimmy Kimmel. More importantly, I think our First Amendment rights here in the country being threatened by federal government employees. So we'd love to dig into that a little bit.
Yes, and of course, we have talked about Charlie Kirk, but what we have not talked about is the Charlie Kirk resolution on the House floor last week, and a surprising vote. We'll hear sound from Jasmine Crockett and talk about that a little bit. So let's get into it. Welcome home, y'all. Native Land Pod will be live this weekend. I hope you all tuned in last year. We did a live show from the Phoenix Awards dinner at the annual legislative conference with my old CBC fam. We'll be there on Saturday, September 27th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern. We are going to have some great guests. I cannot wait to see what Andrew and Tiff have on. It's going to be a fashion show for the gods, y'all. But we will definitely be there right before the dinner. It is a black tie event, so we will be fancy. And we have some special announcements. You all definitely want to tune in then. What y'all got? What you guys think about this?
I'm excited. It's always exciting to be with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. A lot of people say CBC Week. It is the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual legislative conference. I'm curious to see what the crowds will be like given the federal takeover of DC. Are people excited to come? Will it be a bigger crowd than ever? Or will the federal government scare people away? I think, Angela, you had some insight in that they ain't scared. They said, we ready. And they're showing up by the droves. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of the folks here.
Yeah. I'm excited, too, that it seems like as it's been rumored that they've got pretty large RSVP and registrations for the conference this year. So Black folks are like, I ain't scared. You don't terrify me. And let's hope that is true. I think it'll be a good week. It's always good to reconnect with folks who are out here working in the movement space from around the country. And please do not get your expectations off of my wardrobe. I promise you that. But I do plan to enjoy it.
Well, good. Just so you all know, to be clear, it is going to be a live show. It'll be live on YouTube, and you can also, of course, catch that replay in our podcast feed. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now. It's a good time to do that.
Congressman, Charlie Kirk said that MLK was a terrible person, and you voted to honor Charlie Kirk. Why did you vote to honor Charlie Kirk, who said MLK was a terrible person?
I voted to frickin' condemn political violence.
Okay, but it was called the Honor Charlie Kirk Act. It was called the Honor Charlie Kirk Act. So you could do a little fake screaming, but what you did is you disrespected a lot of people.
Condemn political violence.
Yeah, and what did he say about Simone? What did he say about Simone Biles? He said Simone Biles was a sociopath for sitting out the Olympics after she had been sexually assaulted. That's what Charlie Kirk said, and you voted to honor him? Shame on you. You could have sat there and made a statement against political violence. You voted to honor Charlie Kirk.
We disagree.
So Charlie Kirk apparently had said that MLK was not a good person, that the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. Why did you vote to honor him?
I did not vote to honor him. I voted against political violence.
So that vote was against violence only, but the name of the bill is like Honor Charlie Kirk Act or something.
Yeah.
So you voted for it, but you weren't honoring.
I voted to end political violence.
Wow. So what I think is very important about this, and I'd love to hear you all's thoughts, is we often get asked what people can do at home. And I think this clip is a remarkable example of how you can hold elected officials accountable, even when they're not used to it and they might get upset. In case you all missed it, on this resolution, which is HRES 719, which is House Resolution 719, honoring Charlie Kirk, both Judy Chu and Ted Lieu, they've been tremendous fighters. They voted yes on this amendment, though. And so I want to get into one more piece of sound, y'all, before we weigh in writ large. And it is sound from Dana Bash's interview with Jasmine Crockett. And I want to get to this clip here to talk about the resolution as well.
On that note, I do want to turn to something that you heard the senator just say, which is he was talking about a resolution that came before the House this past week honoring Charlie Kirk. And there were 58 Democrats who voted against it. You were one.
Yeah.
Why?
Absolutely. You know what? One of the things I do want to point out that's not been laid out that honestly hurts my heart is when I saw the no votes, there were only 2 Caucasians. For the most part, the only people that voted no were people of color because the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk continuously put out there was rhetoric that specifically targeted people of color. And so it is unfortunate that even our colleagues could not see how harmful his rhetoric was specifically to us. And I can tell you that a month prior to him passing away, he had actually gotten out on his podcast. I wasn't aware of this at the time, but he got out there and he was talking negatively about me directly. So if there was any way that I was going to honor somebody who decided that they were just going to negatively talk about me and proclaim that I was somehow involved in the great white replacement, yeah, I'm not honoring that kind of stuff, especially as a civil rights attorney and understanding how I got to Congress, knowing that there were people that died, people that were willing to die, that worked to make sure that voices like mine could exist in this place. So to me, just like we wanted to make sure that those Confederate relics were taken down, the idea of a new age relic being propped up was something that I just could not subscribe to. And it is unfortunate that more of my colleagues, even on my side of the aisle, could not see the amount of harm that this man was attempting to inflict upon our communities.
I wanted to just flag 2 portions. We've heard you all about making sure that we lean into what we know about what happened on Capitol Hill. And there's 2 pieces in this resolution that I just wanted to call out, in part because I don't know if my co-hosts have seen this, but there were 2 provisions. Whereas Charlie Kirk would not have us respond to his death with despair, but rather with renewed purpose to speak truth with courage, to stand firm in faith, to seek unity while standing firm in principle, and to serve as living reminders of the values he championed, faith, family, and freedom. Now, therefore, be it resolved, and I'm just going to skip down to subsection 4 of the resolution, honors the life, leadership, and legacy of Charlie Kirk, whose steadfast dedication to the Constitution, civil discourse, and biblical truth inspired a generation to cherish and defend the blessings of liberty. I think that it would be good for us to talk about why there were only 58 no's on this vote.
Just for some context for the viewers, I know you said their names, but the 2 members we heard from were Congresswoman Judy Chu, a former chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, and Congressman Ted Lieu. Both of them are part of the California delegation. Judy Chu represents California's 32nd district. Congressman Ted Lieu represents California's 36th district. The reason why I think that's important context for the audience is because they are not in a purple state. They are not in purple districts. Their seats are not in danger. So oftentimes, not that this is an excuse, but oftentimes people will take these somewhat controversial votes because they're afraid that their seats might be in danger. That is not the case with either of these two members, especially being part of the Tri-Caucus. I think it was disheartening to see Congressman Ted Lieu, who I've had on my show before and had a good working relationship with previously. It's disheartening to see them join the rest of some of the members of the Tri-Caucus who folded. I think what our audience has been most vocal about is the Black community, and how angry and disappointed people were to see the most senior Black person in the House, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, who so many of us were rooting for to become the first Black Speaker of the House. He also voted in favor of this resolution. And Angela, please correct me if I'm wrong, but a resolution is not a policy point. It is not attached to a piece of legislation or law. So that has been some of their excuses as well. But it's the symbolism that it sends. And I think it's just a frustrating time for people, because we saw Congressman Leader Jeffries in his office, in his fitted with his hat to the side, quoting Biggie and Jay-Z lyrics. And when it comes down to actual policy, people were disappointed, or actual resolution votes. The same could be said for Senator Cory Booker. People like some of these, I think, publicity stunts, but when it comes down to actual legislation, I think there's a lot of disappointment from the community. So I just wanted to put that in context and let our audience know that we too share your frustration. We've seen your comments and heard what you had to say about it, and it's certainly not in an echo chamber of isolation. A lot of us feel the same level of frustration. Andrew, what do you think?
I don't understand how politicians as seniors as these members who serve at the highest deliberative body in the land, the Congress, the House or the Senate, don't yet understand that you can decry the murdering of someone and at the same time not whitewash their history, their contributions, the harmful things that they may have done or said with these sort of symbolic resolutions that I have to tell you, even I know, Tiffany, you made the point that sometimes members who are in purple districts or in, potentially contestable seats will take tough votes that they may not have in principle been 100% for. I just don't know what voter out there come the next election is going to say, where did you stand on the Kirk resolution to honor Mr. Kirk? And by the way, if that is a question you get, you can probably already resolve that vote was never going to be for you in the first place. If you disagreed with the way in which he lived certain parts of his life, and those certain parts were pretty consequential for people who found themselves in his crosshairs. I am worried that this kind of tap dancing that Democrats are doing is going to continue to steadily move the line of what is appropriate by way of honoring the life of Mr. Kirk. So, for instance, we now have a statewide superintendent of education who has now required that the organization that he led, Turning Point, which is now about to be led by his widow, his wife, has to have a chapter on every school campus in the entire state. And Angela, you probably know what state, and I'm eclipsing Oklahoma at the moment. But so everyone in the state of Oklahoma now has to have on their school chapter, on their schoolyards, public schoolyards, a chapter for Turning Point USA, which is an organization that ideologically I am strongly on the opposite side of. And I imagine if more people knew what it was, they would also find themselves there. So I'm very, very concerned about the moving of the lines. The fact that in Florida, we're about to have a memorial road renamed for Charlie Kirk. Again, these are ideas that are not universally accepted by people, unlike Martin Luther King, who said, one day this nation will rise up to live out the true meaning of its creed. I mean, those are conciliatory, just and righteous words. I don't know how saying that Kamala Harris, Ketanji Brown Jackson, women, professional, successful, accomplished, highly credentialed women don't have the brain capacity to manage complex things, and furthermore in suggestion that every other woman lesser in qualifications than them can't possibly ascend to an acceptable level of brain capacity to digest and to reckon with complex questions and things. I'm weakened by them. I think the party is weakened by this leadership, if you want to call it that. And I think overall, it will not serve Democrats well to tap dance on their belief system. And I think this is just an example of that.
Well, and if it is their belief system, right, I think the thing that I want to call out is there were 95 Democrats that voted in favor of this resolution. There were 58 who voted no. There were 38 who voted present, and there were 22 who didn't vote at all, including some people in leadership. I know for a fact, Joe Neguse did not vote at all. Joaquin Castro did not vote at all. There are people who are our friends who did not vote at all. And I think that the real challenge we have here is that somebody said, well, the party's fractured. And I said, the party's done. The Democratic Party, as far as I'm concerned, is done. Dixiecrats have risen their heads at this point. And I think that what we're seeing is that it's a textbook example of the fact that white supremacy is oftentimes upheld by people who look just like me and you, people who we can find ourselves aligned with on so many other values. But in this particular instance, and I do want to lift up, I don't know who the person was who shot the video of Congressman Liu, who is also the KPAC whip, which means he whips votes for that caucus, the Asian Pacific American Caucus, and Judy Chu, who has been a longstanding chair of the caucus. I just want people to understand that this is not the hour to be conciliatory, to be negotiating against political violence. This man attacked someone who is our dear sister and friend, Joy Reid. So and Jasmine, as she said, Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman Crockett. And then after that, Jasmine taking him on, and we're not going to have a bunch of time to get into it today, but Laura Loomer taking on Jasmine Crockett and the inflammatory, violent things she had to say about her, calling her ghetto, calling her the B word. Like, this is not them tamping down or ramping down this rhetoric. They're leaning into it. What this resolution does is it empowers white supremacists to white supremacy. You know what I mean? Like, that is what is going on. So I think we need to be very clear about what this moment requires of us. The courage isn't just going to be required by the citizens, by the people. The courage is also required by the folks who have been elected to serve the people. And that means that if, in case they forgot, in case there needs to be an altar call, in case you need to recommit your life, you need to be challenged. And you know what every citizen has the right to do is call your member, approach your member, and ask them why. Make them explain this vote. We, at the very least, deserve that opportunity.
I just want to, can I really quickly just give some context, and I'll toss it to you, Andrew, but because you referenced Joe Neguse, Congressman Joe Neguse is a member of Congress from Colorado, and the context is important there because he's the first Eritrean ever elected to Congress, and when that happened, it was a huge deal. I think that's important for the audience to know because sometimes we celebrate Black faces in high places, and they are not necessarily carrying our voice. Also, Congressman Joaquin Castro, who is from Texas, and our political memories can be short, but they were considered, he and his twin brother, Julian Castro, were considered political leaders. They were considered the next faces of the Democratic Party, particularly after President Obama came into office. Julian Castro served as HUD secretary during the Obama administration. And so to see them even fall back. Now, Texas, of course, has complicated politics, but to me, it's not courage if there's no skin in the game. It's not courage if there's no sacrifice. So I didn't even know that Joe Neguse was one of the people, he didn't vote. Is that what you were saying?
He's the assistant Democratic leader. So he's in leadership. He did not vote at all. Democratic leadership said that they were going to collectively vote yes to stop political violence, to ramp down what was happening, as if voting in favor of honoring a white supremacist and someone who has been very violent and vitriolic in their rhetoric was going to do that at all. And I think that what they're going to have to do is learn the hard way that the death threats will still come, that people will still be targeting your life, because they weren't doing that because they were waiting to see if you could be civil. Right. After Charlie Kirk was killed, they were doing that because they don't like you. They don't want you to be here. They don't want you to ascend to leadership. They don't want you to represent them in the House, the Senate, or in the presidency. They don't want you to be on the Supreme Court. They don't want you in their classrooms. They don't want you getting their contracts. They don't want you getting their jobs. They want you out of here. And so the sooner that we begin to realize that and legislate and lead, like we understand what time it is, the better.
Andrew, I know we have a viewer question, but I cut you off.
Yeah.
So
I'm good. We can go to the viewer question.
Let's hear from the viewer.
Hey, David Lynn. My name is Jessica. I'm from PG County, Maryland. I have a bunch of questions, but I'll send some different videos. Today's question is in reference to the Kimmel situation that happened last night. Today is September 18th. What are the levels of protest, divestment, or is there anyone creating lists, or not lists of companies, but lists of ways to divest from certain things? For example, ABC is owned by Disney. Level 1, unsubscribe from Disney Plus, cancel your cable subscription. And that's in particular to them. We unsubscribe from Paramount Plus or whatever. What is there anyone creating that type of list? Because everyone, or the majority of people, are not going to go and physically protest. But they may be able to save themselves some money and protest these companies bowing to these idiots. So please enlighten us if there are those type of resources.
I'm personally not aware of universal platforms that monitor this stuff on a regular basis and decide who we should and shouldn't boycott. Obviously, economic boycotts are extremely powerful, and there are steps, I think, of getting to economic boycott, and very specifically for the Black community, it is a very, very strong cudgel that we have to reserve for the most important times, which I think our community can collectively feel and react to. Obviously, at the point that we're hearing your question, and we thank you for it, ABC has, of course, again, reversed its position. There was an economic boycott that I don't know if it was universally sanctioned or who put the word out, but people absolutely did take it upon themselves to cancel their Disney Plus subscriptions, their Hulu subscriptions, and let their voices be heard, from the Actors Guild to individual citizens, letting it be known to Disney that the First Amendment right in this country is still sacrosanct for a lot of people. It used to be sacrosanct for Republicans. That day doesn't appear to exist for many of them, with a few exceptions. I was actually surprised to see Ted Cruz and a few others come out strongly defending the First Amendment. I do wonder where their voices have been as the rest of the Constitution's been trampled on. But at least maybe there is some break in the storm, that there are some folks who haven't lost all of their religion as it relates to the Constitution. But I think as it relates to economic boycotts, we within our community have to be very protectionist around that strategy. And when we move, we ought to move with force and with impact. And I think that's how we bring, people who are against us, to heel. I'm not sure if you ladies have other thoughts on that.
I know we just got that great question about Jimmy Kimmel, and I think it leads us right into our next guest, because the Jimmy Kimmel situation got so much attention because of the voices surrounding him and people even initiating the protests that Andrew talked about. When it happened to a wealthy white man, people gathered around. And I wish we could have that same support for Black women. And that brings us right to our next guest, Karen Atia. She is a writer, commentator, and editor. She had been with the Washington Post since 2014. I used to love her column. She even wrote one about me. Thank you very much, Karen. But she was abruptly fired. She was the last remaining Black columnist at the Washington Post. And then in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's murder, the Washington Post dismissed her. So we're very excited to get into this conversation. Karen, welcome home.
Home. Thanks, Tiffany.
And thank you for all the support and the work that you've done, truly.
Absolutely. Karen, thank you. So we hear that there's some things that are percolating given your experience at the Washington Post. What do you want to share with our audience today about your experience and your path forward? And also congratulations on an amazing Substack launch.
Oh, thank y'all. Gosh, it's been such a whirlwind. I mean, I think I'm processing the shock of being terminated via email, of all things, after 11 years with the Post and with the opinion section, right? So very briefly, in the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk shooting, and not just the Charlie Kirk shooting, but there was another shooting at a Colorado school. I was thinking about someone who'd shot up the CDC with 500 bullets. I was thinking about Melissa Hortman in Minnesota, who was assassinated, her husband killed, and her dog killed, right? And in this backdrop of America and gun violence and political violence. So I was criticizing this sort of empty rhetoric around violence has no place here, and this is not who we are, and thoughts and prayers. And I was just like, enough. This is who America is. And to be able to speak about this, the perpetrators so often of political extremist violence and these mass shootings, statistically, according to the FBI, according to the DOJ, have been white men, particularly young white men. And all I said in my Blue Sky post was normalizing this sort of coddling of violent white men is part of what keeps America in this bloody status quo, right? And so it was very general, and it was nothing. I've had some spicy takes. I know when my takes are spicy because my alerts be looking crazy. This was none of that. This was very somber. I condemned the murder of Charlie Kirk while also saying I was not going to go over the top and perform mourning, tear my clothes, and smear ashes on my face, particularly for a man that routinely disparaged particularly Black women, Black men, called for lethal violence against migrants, put some acquaintances I know on watch lists that threatened their safety. I was not going to engage in over-the-top emotionality, performative. And so I said that and went about my day. And then 12 hours later, I get a notice of termination from the Post saying I had engaged in gross misconduct because I disparaged Kirk on the basis of race by mentioning white men. Again, anyone can go back to my post. I've left them up. That's how much I stand by them. I said violent white men. So this was an unjust firing. I categorically reject everything they said, claiming that I was putting my colleagues in danger, that I posed a risk to the Post after my 11 years, putting my life on the line to defend press freedoms, to defend other people, to give people the right to speak, that I was a risk. No. So the news today coming out of all of this, I've had a whole lot of support, decided to challenge this and file an official grievance within the Guild of the Post. So we're definitely challenging that this was without cause. This firing was without cause, without basis, of violated policy, and that I'm also still retaining the options to take this further because this precedent cannot stand. I was doing my job as a writer, as a journalist, as a commentator while exercising restraint, and it's chilling to me to see the Washington Post engaging in a firing, basically sending the message that if you talk about white men, your job is on the line.
Yeah.
I was being descriptive. Not disparaging, as uncomfortable as it might be to hear about these patterns. That is the truth. And that's all I was doing. I was punished for telling the truth. So, like I said, not taking it lying down, filing a fight back within the Post with the grievance, and retain counsel with the democracy defenders. And
will that impact Jeff Bezos directly? Because I know the environment there changed grossly after Jeff Bezos acquired. And we just had a question from a viewer asking, how can we protest these things? And when you consider the tentacles that Jeff Bezos has, and considering your loss, we should mention that you were, of course, the editor for Jamal Khashoggi, who was brutally murdered, accused of, we believe, by the Saudi government. And we believe MBS had a hand in it personally, and you were right out front on that battle as well. Given that there are less than 6% of Black people in leadership positions of newsrooms, and when you disaggregate that, considering Black women, it's even less. So when Jeff Bezos took this over, the environment likely changed for you as well. So does your lawsuit name him? Or your potential lawsuit, your grievance, does it name him or target him directly?
Yeah, we sent a letter to Washington Post leadership, and we have noted these changes, particularly in recent years. I can say from my experience has been a bit of a 180. I have a bit of whiplash. When I joined at around the same time Bezos bought the paper. So I actually joined at a time when there was a lot of diversity. I mean, I was a high-ranking senior editor in a way in the opinion section. And again, I've been in the opinion section my entire career, meaning I was paid to give opinions and paid to surface opinions and paid to also defend people whose opinions might have not have been sort of accepted all the time. But part of what is so chilling about this time is that the Post, particularly when my writer Jamal Khashoggi was killed, we put ourselves front and center as defending press freedom around the world, that you should not be silenced and punished just for critiquing your country. That's what Jamal did. He loved his country. He loved Saudi Arabia, and they still murdered him for it. And at the time, the Post stood behind me, stood behind Jamal, in a way. We won all sorts of recognition, all sorts of awards, and we are the embodiment of what it should look like when an institution has their writers and editors' backs. Now, I am being thrown under the bus despite putting my physical safety on the line for this institution, and not just this institution, but it's really because I do truly believe that the ability to express yourself, the First Amendment, is the one right that guarantees all the other rights. If we cannot name, if we cannot express, if we cannot even refer to data and facts, it makes it so much harder to fight for every single other right. It makes it so much harder to fight for our communities, particularly as a Black journalist. It makes it damn near impossible to talk about race if this is the precedent that is being set. So right now, this is not, I've never changed. It's the Post that's changed. And I guess for me, sorry, I'm so passionate about this because it's just, I've talked to my colleagues who remain at the Post and outside. Again, I was an opinion journalist, meaning I have a broader range of a latitude, even under the social media policy, to be able to not only express myself, but to advocate as well, to write about the world as I think that it should be. That's what my editor, Fred Hyatt, told me to do as a journalist. And so to see the Post abandon those values in such a way puts a target on other journalists' back, puts a target on Black journalists' back, puts a target on anyone who's trying to talk about race, puts a target on their back. And so, what I'm hoping out of this is that there is a reversal because, for me, it's bigger than a job. It's about protecting our ability to be able to speak the truth and to protect particularly Black journalists' safety to do their jobs.
So important. And Karen, we're so grateful that you could join us. We know you have a heart out. Best of luck with your complaint, and keep up the fight. We know it's not just for you, it's for all of us. So thank you so much. And speaking of Black journalists who have been under attack, we have Ebony McMorris joining us now from American Urban Radio Network, and she is the White House correspondent there. This just happened this week with President Trump. Let's roll the clip.
to New York too.
Mr. President,
and we're going to be going in quiet. You're really obnoxious.
I'm not obnoxious, but I'm trying to ask you, what about your plans
You are
for
really
Memphis?
obnoxious.
I'm not obnoxious, but I am asking, what are your plans for Memphis? Many people want
I'm
to
not going to talk to you until I call on you.
What are your plans for Memphis?
Who else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to sell this.
Wow. So, Ebony, we just saw what took place with you and the president in the Oval Office. You are, of course, a decorated journalist, long time, 20 years. You spent time at NBC and News One before going to American Urban Radio Networks. Tell us what that experience was like for you and just what you've been going through since.
Thank you. Let me just first say thank you. Thank you for this platform. Platforms like Native Land Pod that allow us to tell our story and keep each other's names in our mouths so that we can continue telling our story. In the moment that it happened, because I had seen this president rage bait and berate so many people over and over again, particularly Black women, and we know the roll call, and you just had Karen on to talk about what happens when we speak up. I was angry. I went in and at the time thinking about what we're seeing with Charlie Kirk, and also there was a bust of Lincoln, for President Lincoln, right in front of us. While I also remember that the president just put up a painting of Robert E. Lee. It wasn't making sense. And I just wanted to know what was going on with Memphis. And I had said in my mind, because I'm always in there pressing and answering, but that day I was fed up with it. And I wanted to know what happened. And I didn't want to get off topic. And he had a rant. We've seen him do these 20-minute, 30-minute rants, and they're never about anything. So I wanted to get to some substance. And when he called me obnoxious, instantly, no, I'm not. But I also know that you're trying to get us off. He said it again. No, I'm not. When he told me to be quiet, I did pause for a quick second. But then I came back because I was just tired of it. I didn't even think that the moment would be what it was. For me, I was just like, I'm tired. And my no was because I felt like you were saying Black folk are obnoxious. Black women are obnoxious. And it felt a little personal. And so in that moment, I was like, I'm not going to back down, but I need to know about Memphis because I'm a native Washingtonian and I'm here. I see what's happening in these streets. I see you put forth the plan to militarize the streets. And then I see you put forth a plan to address homelessness, but you never really do it. And so I was tired of it, just like so many other journalists. And Tiffany, you know, being on the Hill and covering so many stories, our voices get muffled so much. And most people don't know there are literally only a handful of Black owned and operated stations that are even in that press briefing, let alone in the pool. And so we wonder why aren't we hearing this? And why aren't we hearing this story? It is because there are not that many of us in there. So that's why platforms like this are important. You're not going to hear many of our stories on mainstream media. It's just not happening. And when you do, it is absolutely not covered in the same way with the same Black voices. And in that moment, I was just tired of him calling on the person to the left and to the right over and over. The other questions that I had was about the hanging of Trey Reed. The other questions that I had was, why did you scrub the DOJ website? When we know, and Karen was talking about this, the amount of violence that we see coming from right-wing organizations. But instead, we got this whole speech about him going after Democrats, when the DOJ report that they're trying to hide says something very different. And it is infuriating.
I got to say, your professionalism was actually on full display. The irritation, annoyance, and disrespect that you felt in that moment really was overcome by your professionalism rising to the top, by you not returning disrespect with disrespect. You stood completely in your right as a journalist to ask a legitimate question, and you expected, well, you hope for anyway, a real and legitimate response from the man who sits in the most powerful position in all the land. I got to imagine that having the ire of the president of the United States and the army of really dangerous people, not calling them all that, but many of them dangerous people who follow him, who then take things to the next level that put your person in harm's way. I would love if we know one of your previous colleagues, April Ryan, also found herself sort of in those crosshairs. And I remember during that time her sharing with us just how dangerous it felt. And so my question really is to your person. How are you making sure that you stay protected, safe, secure, and more than anything, on your job?
Well, let me just first say, April was one of the first people that called me immediately. And she said, and I wasn't even, I just know I wanted to hurry up and get out the White House. I wanted to get in my car and go. Yeah. That was really my first thought. Let me get out of here. I didn't even look online. I didn't even know people were sharing. She called and she says, "Sis, good job." She was like, "You did that." She was like, but she told me, she began to share more of her story and how she began to protect herself. And I said to her, I said, "April, when we elected Trump in office, before that, I had to have a conversation with friends and family. Let me just tell you how this ride may look. Let me just tell you with even our children. Let me tell you what we're not posting, what we're not doing, because safety is first, right?" And in addition to that, I've had other colleagues and other journalists reach out to me. But it is a very real situation. So it wasn't like I came out like, "Oh, I did this." No, I was like, let me get home and let me notify my husband just what happened, just so we can all be safe. So our community, I'm in the community all the time, not just here at the White House. I'm helping people on the street. I'm feeding the homeless. I'm very involved. My husband's a pastor, so we actually go out on the street on the weekends and help those who are addicted to drugs. Right. And so I'm seeing where real life and where policy is having a detrimental effect. But one thing that he said when I was talking to my baby girl that I've shared is that she said, "He called you obnoxious." She said, "Obnoxious means unpleasant." And I said, "You know what? It is times that we like this, that we have to be unpleasant. When we look at Ida B. Wells and there were Black bodies hanging from trees, she had to be unpleasant. When Emmett Till was brutally murdered, his mother had to be unpleasant to show the world what this country looks like. So fine, I was upset at the obnoxious thing, but I'll be obnoxious when it comes to getting the truth out and protecting my community and all of us, even you on here on a Native Land Pod. I know people have come for you. We see it online. I did finally go to Twitter and I saw someone say, "Here she is, MAGA, get her." I was like, But what I am not going to allow you to do is to take your white nationalist faith, wrap it around a cross, be indignant about it, put Jesus as your mascot, and act like you are fighting for justice when you are not. And so that's why our voices are important. If it wasn't for outlets like this, and those who are online, and people like April and Dante Wright, who's with blackpr.com, and Zena and other voices that we hear on a daily calling and saying, "We got you," it would make the fight that harder. But one thing I heard Jimmy Kimmel say, because that's 6 days, that number, six days. They did this in 6 days. He was back on air. He said, if it wasn't for your voices, rising up, mine would not be heard. And I think we have to take that to heart, because if it is not for our voices, other Black journalists like Yamish Alcindor, like even I would say Karen Hughes and Reese Colbert, so many, and Karen speaking out, speaking truth to power, right? We would not be able to get our stories out. So the action forward, I would say, because people are saying, what do? We number one have to realize that our voices are not to be taken. You can take anything you want. People say, what about your past? You can take the White House past. You can take whatever you want, but I'll be on the other side of that gate speaking truth to power. My voice is not yours to take. And that is how we have always been able to push through in this hour. And so I need people to understand that the power of the press, the power of free speech is extremely important. We have a president who has literally created an enemies list and told you who is on the list.
Yeah.
And people still don't believe it. It's not connecting for me.
Well, Ebony,
I just want to say.
No, Angela, go ahead.
Oh,
no,
sorry.
go for it.
just really quick for context, Ebony, I heard you say that the first thought was, let me get out of here when you were in the White House. And what I love about this is you are now in a space where you will be surrounded by your large, accepted, chosen Black family. You're there at the CBC Foundation's annual legislative conference, set up at the AURN booth. I'm going to come see y'all today.
That's all the noise. I'm sorry.
No, that's right. But I wanted to make sure people knew that you were in the noise of comfort, especially in DC. We want to find those spaces like that. And I just want to say I'm actually on my way to an event from the State of the People with the CBC Foundation. But I want to say thank you for being a voice of comfort, of reason, of conviction, in halls where many of us cannot go, where many of our folks have never been. And I just really, really appreciate you for your courage in this moment. It is hard. We're seeing that few and far between. There are a lot of people not leading with conviction and courage. And so thank you for standing on the shoulders of Ida B. Wells and so many others that have preceded you. You are a powerful voice, and we are definitely here to support you, my sister. Tiff,
That's okay. I'm glad you said that. And I think it's important is to say that Ebony is at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation exhibit. Yes. So thank you for being there. I echo 10 times everything Angela said. I wanted to ask you, because of course as journalists, we do not want to be the story. Like, we are trained. We are not the story. And so many times when young people say, I want to be a journalist, I think they think that means you go on TV and give your opinion. But no, journalists listen more than we speak. We are there to interrogate, not to offer our thought. But even with that lens, I think what you're saying is so important, because often what is considered unbiased is rooted in what's white and male. When you are insulted by the President of the United States, of course you have a right to say, no, Mr. President, I am not obnoxious. And you proceed with your story. And when he's not calling on you, you not only have a right, but an obligation to your audience to ask your question. It happens all the time. And it's not courage if there is no fear there. Courage only comes in the space of fear. And when you choose in that moment to stand up and say, no, despite everything that may happen to me, I am going to press forward and ask my question, truly in the spirit of Ida B. Wells, who was talking about white women sleeping with Black men in the deep South. And threatening, with multiple threats to her life. So I think that's just an important context for you. When you're navigating newsrooms where most of the people do not look like us, we run up against our career ambition can often butt heads with our humanity. When there are white executives who tell us what is appropriate, what is considered unbiased, I'm just curious how you navigate that, and any advice you have to people who might look at certain people and say, well, you're not really speaking for me, or why didn't they do this? To give any insight to the viewing audience who may not understand what happens behind the scenes, particularly in broadcast news.
Thank you for that question, because and I know it is hard. I have been in those spaces, and most people may not know how your day will start. You come together with a meeting with the reporters and the producers, and you decide what you will cover. And I remember a particular incident. This is around when the housing crash in 2008, and we were all there talking. And I heard someone say, I was probably one of two Black people in the room, and they said, I just don't understand why certain communities are having such a hard time. I mean, if you just pay your bill, or if you just do this. And in that moment, I was young at the time. I bridled my tongue, but I was so angry. And I was like, I didn't know what to say. And there are a lot of journalists. Now I'm a little different because I don't mind speaking out. But then I didn't know how to handle it. And there's so many journalists who are in meetings, in white spaces. And you're like, how do I lift up my voice? How do I control the narrative? And what I began to do was first to begin to get to understand who was in my space. Because at that time I was going to work, I was doing whatever, great network. But I was like, I need to connect with more Black journalists who are covering these stories. Because I didn't really at the time. I was just happy to be there. I was young. And so I said, now I need to connect. I need to network more, because we have always worked amazing in the dark, right? And so I began to huddle and talk with them and plan and figure out, how do we tell our stories? If I can tell, let me feed you this information. It is almost like an underground railroad network when it comes to some of these programs. And I'm talking about ones that lead right and ones that lean left as well. Please don't get it twisted. You will find this fight. It doesn't matter where you go. And as I began to do that, it was help for me. It was assuring. It gave me hope. And it also showed me where I can plant my voice in other independent papers. And so you don't always have to stay where you are. I don't know what your contract looks like, but I need us to also just reach out to each other, to keep each other's names in your mouth. When I finished this, one of the first people to reach out was also Shauna Renee and Dr. Wilmer Leon on XM. And after each conversation, we always huddle, what can we do from here? What can we do from here? What is this? What does safety look like for our community? Because as you know, there may be a day, and this goes for anyone in any industry, that the rug may be snatched right from under you in the middle of you thinking that you're great. And if you don't have a safety net, if you don't have a community built up, it is hard. So I'm telling people, wherever you are, you may not have been let go, you may be still on the job, but I need you to prepare, because if not, you will be beholden to a check. I need you, I always tell people, build on the side. If someone wants to say goodbye to you tomorrow, what will you do? And that may come to you when you have a message that's so deep down in your spirit that you need to cry out and you need to get out, but you're afraid. Create community. I've been doing that. I love being at American Urban Radio Networks, but I also have to know what the purpose is that God has put inside of me, and that is just like everybody else. We always talk about, I ain't trying to go Bible on you, but we always talk about Esther for such a time as this, but you got to understand the role of Mordecai. Mordecai is the one that had to push her to tell her story and to tell her what would happen if she did not. And in that, God said, I'll still raise up another, but this is going to affect you. So where that Mordecai represents those communities, those people around you. And so I want everybody to be safe, but do not allow someone to control your voice. That may be the only thing you leave with in a place.
That's a word.
I knew Andrew over there nodding about the case. So I knew Andrew was going to jump in.
Because Tiffany, I know you've been through it. I've shed tears when I've seen, because I've been where I've had to speak out and then had to figure out how I was going to feed myself. And be honest with you, had a message on my door that I was going to get evicted because I lifted up my voice. I was tired. Like I'm here now, but I know you. I know both of y'all. When them tears start hitting them pillows and you're like, oh my God, and ain't nobody covering you or coming back for you and the headline is gone, what do you have?
Yeah.
I have God and I have my voice. I promise you, I will not be silenced no matter where I am. I just want to thank you. I'm going to thank the journalists who weren't able to, their names weren't told. I see you. The different outlets, NMPA, I see you. The work that we do, and people don't realize a lot of these outlets, we don't have a whole lot of money. People always fussing, where are you at? It was Roland who called me and was like, sis, I got you. Just pull me over sometimes. What do you need? What do you need? And we have to do that. Yeah. Lastly, I'll say, and I'm going to keep saying this, people pulled their money 6 days, y'all. Over $3 billion, 6 days for Target. We had to do a press conference, try to figure out what day is it going to start? Are you going to do it? Well, what we got left? Yeah. No, there was no press conference. People just immediately reacted. I need there to be an immediate reaction in these days and in these times. And so if you canceled your subscription, my question is, where are you going to put that money now? Are you going to put it in Black media? Are you going to put it in someone who is actually lifting up your voice and caring for your people? Where are you going to put your subscription? I'm glad that he's back on air. However, my question is, those of us who care about our community and you cancel your subscription, what you going to do with that money now? You putting it back into the system? Or you going to feed something to feed you?
Hey, man. Can you pass the collection plate? Anybody? The gold one. Put the gold one out, not the silver. We want the gold plate moving around because your words are so true. They ripple throughout every aspect of our community, no matter where you are, inside journalism, outside, at the janitor, wherever you are. These are really key lessons that all of us in these days, we probably should have been doing it all along. But if it isn't clear now, it won't get clear. You'll never pick it up if you don't pick it up right now. If you don't know right now that our lives are threatened on every single side, and at the end of the day, all we got is us.
To the 400,000 Black women who lost their jobs, to Elisa Cook, to every week, we got the roll call. He gave you the list.
That's it. Sis, continue. Oh man, just we thank you for what you've done already, and I only let eyes have not seen, ears have not heard. That's all I know. That's all I know.
I love it.
That's all I know.
I just want to say thank you. And Tiffany, I always wanted to tell you, when you all launched this and I saw you wipe the tears from your eyes, I was like, sis, I literally wanted to be like, I got you. How do we get each other, support each other with our mouths and with our dollars, with our time? You thoughts and prayers, that's fine. But I would love prayers and action.
There it
prayers
is.
would get my strategy, and then God shows me what action I need to take. Keep your
Thank
thoughts.
you. Thank you, Ebony. I appreciate that. And I got you as well. When I see you, I'm going to give you a big church hug. Because truly,
Andrew, you too. I was crying with you too, brother. I was like, oh God.
I had enough tears for all of us, so thank you.
All right. They
Thank you.
To the cross, but guess what? Jesus
Thank you
got
for
us.
your work
That's
as a
it.
journalist, for speaking truth to power, and for standing your ground and asking the questions that need to be asked, because at the root of all this was a very important story, and that is the potential federalization of cities, mostly Black cities across our country. So thank you for asking about Memphis. I do want to acknowledge that, yes, of course, we are familiar with the stories around the hanging. I've actually been making calls. There was similar stories that happened in Mississippi that I carried on my show that I had at MSNBC. So that is something that we'll be looking into and talking about here on Native Land Pod. But journalism continues. As it always will. And what I have to remind myself, as I'll share this with you, is Ida B. Wells had a fraction of what we had. The Chicago Defender had a fraction of what we had, and they were still able to inform the masses. Not always opine, but inform. And there is a huge difference. And right now is a time for reading, consuming news, and reading books, you guys. Like, it is a time for reading books. So just thank you for all of that. And I look forward to seeing you this week at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual legislative conference. As you know, we'll be broadcasting live from the dinner. So if you happen to be in the area, definitely please stop by so we can see you in person. We'll be broadcasting live there, I believe 5 to 7. Yes, so you can catch us on YouTube there. And you, of course, can catch us in person. Looking forward to seeing you soon. And thank you so much for joining us, Ebony. We'll have to have you back real soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We were made for the movement. That's
There it
the
is.
thing.
That's right.
There it is.
Take care.
Thank you.
Andrew, I wanted to ask you a question, but I was trying to debate if I should ask while she was there or not. But I mean, you, since you were, I think, 19, had been in elected office. You have been pressed by members of the press about so many things, from policy to your personal life. I have never seen you be disrespectful to a member of the press. You have shown up, because I hate when people call Donald Trump like this macho man, this big strong man, and this alpha male. No, he's not. He's a little biatch, really.
Weak.
And you have never, you have stood there like a man every time. It's like, I'm going to look you in your eye. I'm going to answer the question. If I don't have an answer for you, I'm going to get back to you. I mean, you didn't bullshit people, you were genuinely vested in the work. And you respected members of the press to engage them. So I'm just curious, when you see things like this happen, what is your reaction as someone who's an elected official for so long? That behavior would not have been tolerated.
Tiffany, it's hard to even posit yourself in the mind of a Donald Trump, right? Because scientists are going to have to diagnose a new level of megalomania after Donald Trump. I mean, when you take in fullness his speech to the United Nations, if you could call it that.
Embarrassing.
I mean, on so many levels. He went from, high mighty to in the gutter to dig in the graves to, I mean, it was just, it was unbelievable. And I mean, I don't want to say unprecedented because that's overused, and every day it becomes more precedented because people then follow his example and try to out Trump. Right? Republicans are now trying to out Trump. And so, but these guys who are so egotistical, they're so caught up in themselves. They can't even, his umbrage that he took was fueled, in my opinion, not only by the typical level of egotism, but it was further fueled by the fact that the man has it in for black women. He got issues with black men too, but they're never on display quite the way the umbrage he takes from black women. I don't know where. I mean, there's Tish James out there. There's Fani down in Georgia. There's obviously April Ryan that was in the White House press corps. There's folks like you and Angela. Joy. I mean, Joy, absolutely. So he feels very held to account and almost like, and this is actually a truism, I think. It's sort of like black women are not docile and believing the hype. It's you all have a third eye that says, I see you. I see all of you. And you're not really flummoxed by the contours, by the makeup. It's like, okay, you got makeup, you got a nice suit on, but I know who you are. And I'm going to ask you this question in respect for the office, but also in full awareness of who you are. Donald Trump does not want to be seen for who he is. Yeah. You all seem to cut through in a way that causes him injury. And he takes it out like any third grader, and no offense to third graders. I got one at home, but he's a narcissist, as most are, it's about me, right? And that's sort of what it is for him. And he can't see the forest for the trees, wouldn't spot the tree anyway, unless it was a direct resemblance of himself. That's how in himself he is. He's a narcissist. This behavior is not tolerated. But Tiffany, I just want to quickly draw the point that all of this is connected back to that resolution that we started this show with. When Democrats and our leaders give a permission structure for Republicans to rewrite history, whitewash history, expel any of the truth about a person's character that is not 100% in a positive light, we create the permission structure for them to continue to do that when we join in with the kind of really propaganda that the Republicans were pushing through this resolution. If you wanted to decry political violence, they had the option of producing a resolution that was titled Decrying Political Violence. Right. They had the opportunity to do that. They didn't. Don't buy that as an excuse. So all I'm saying is when we let them get away with stuff like Charlie Kirk, and then there's a road, and then there's going to be a national holiday, and then there's so when you give a little bit, he takes a mile. Check out his social media. He said, maybe I'll take ABC back to court. The last time they gave me, I don't know, $27 million. This time it'll be much more lucrative, right? He doesn't respect the fact that they opined to him. He didn't respect that before. He sees it as a weakness, and now he wants to go in for the kill.
Yeah.
And we got to get better. That's why we're losing. Because we're learning the wrong lesson.
I echo all of that. And I know a lot of our viewers have the same frustrations. And so thank you all for tuning in, for sending in your questions, your videos. If you like this discussion, please share it. We're not always giving a how-to and this is what you can do. Sometimes it's just good to be in community with each other and recognize the threat, give a name to what we're feeling. So we try to do that here every week on Native Land Pod. So please be sure to subscribe and share everything with us. And if you do have a video, it doesn't have to be a question. As long as it's under 60 seconds, you can DM it to us on our Instagram, Native Land Pod handle there. You can also email it to us. I'll give all that information at the end of the show. But please do share this conversation with your crew, drop it in your group chat. Because what I've noticed, Andrew, is when we talk about it, it is like loosening the bottle a bit. It is, at least I can say this out loud to someone. And I'm so touched by our viewers for weighing in. Oh, speaking of, The survey. Yes. Thank you guys so much for weighing in. I went through and read every single comment. So for all, I live in the comments. So for everybody who took the time to not only fill out the survey, but also give very thoughtful feedback. That was constructive criticism, celebration of what we do, suggestions for what we can do better. Just every single comment, truly, it made me feel so touched. It truly did, Andrew. The overwhelming thought on Andrew, and I'm not going to press you today because I know you get tired of us asking you this question, but seriously, Andrew, overwhelmingly, people were asking you to please run for office. So just putting that out there.
Well, I want to join you in thanking our viewer, listener family. No, hell no. But I look, God works, right? And so I just, I will be obedient. But only until that a shift such as that would take place. But I was blown away by the number of people who decided to take the survey and to respond. It told me that our listeners, our family out there, really, they have ownership in this platform. And because of that ownership, we have to, and I feel this every week, we have to be at the best of what we can be when we come in every week, knowing what it is that we need to know, not trafficking in misinformation, making sure that we've tried to at least assess something from the various lenses that we all bring to this table. And while it may not be perfect, it will be the best of what we can give at that time. And what we don't know, admit to not knowing and make room for further growth if it's necessary. But it touched me to know that as much as I love this show and you all as my sisters and my obviously my coworkers and friends here, that there's a whole squad of folks who feel as invested, as I think we feel with the responsibility of this platform, the opportunity and the privilege of it. But in this time, also the organizing power that I think that we can possess as it is required. And so it's soul food. It is food for my soul. And it was really comforting to see that it's food for a lot of people's souls. And so consistent with your earlier request, please share, you subscribe, bring other people to this space so that they can also find some level of release and hope, I think, as we come across it. One of the
comments, the only one I kind of disagreed with, somebody was like, Tiffany, well, it was a few comments like this, but one person got very specific and said that I should talk more about my personal life. And I was like, God dang, y'all want me to sit here naked? Should I take you in my therapy session with you? Like, I feel like I talk all the time about my personal life.
We want you to name check this man you talk about. That's what
people like, take more about your personal life.
First and last name.
What else y'all want to know? Like, what else can I say? I try to be really open. But anyway, I really enjoyed all the comments.
I find you very open about it, but I also conflate our one-on-one conversations probably with what we may have said.
And I will say
too.
Sometimes it feels like I'm just talking to you and Angela. And then when I see people out on the street and they repeat something that I've shared here that was very personal to me, I'm like, how do you even know that?
Yeah,
and why are you
I say that?
And I'm like, good that you said it.
You put it out there.
Yes. And it gives people a sense of like they know me. Like, girl, you were talking about this. I was like, I literally forget that there's a whole audience out there listening to what we say.
But Tiffany, that's a gift to the extent that people feel a level of comfort. I get this all the time with, about my kids. I don't post on social media, but RJ is, she is very fanatical about, the share. So I'll hear things from people about my kids. Oh my goodness, what Caroline did the other day. I'm like,
how do you know that? Yeah.
But at the same token, again, there's a buy-in there, and an ownership and almost a protection. I feel like, Caroline, if you're gonna be out here, there are eyes on you, girl. You better watch yourself.
Right. These kids are
and so on and so forth. But it is a gift that you're able to invite people into your space. I think we all try to do it to the level that they feel comfortable. It's like Miss Rye and then Tiffany.
Yes. Well, I enjoy it. That was my favorite part, reading all the comments. So, and of course, I always read all the comments on YouTube. And they were pretty consistent. I find YouTube, I think, gives me a snapshot. And if there's ever anything I need to gut check myself on or just check myself on, I think the comments are really helpful. So thank you guys. We should get to call.
Yeah. As I always say to you, can you distill for me what I need to know
Yes,
so I can take it away and like
I
do
know.
it?
People say it's bad to be in the comments, but I can take it.
No. I don't think
my
that.
friends
I
tell
don't
me all the
believe
time,
that at
stay out
all.
the comments. But I really can. I can take it when people have criticism. Of course, there are always like the bots and like the MAGA people, so I kind of skip past those.
Yeah.
But people who have great feedback for me, even when it's criticism or even when it's something I disagree with, I do just appreciate that they took the time to say anything about the show. So I keep them coming, and definitely feel free to hop on video and send us a comment, even in disagreement. And we'll do a better job of very specifically answering your questions, because that was some of the feedback we got as well. Well, viewers ask a question and y'all kind of talk about it, but then you move on. So we want to start specifically addressing your questions or comments. And we are always thrilled to hear from you and just give you all the utmost respect. And so even if our playing the dozen sometimes comes across any other way, we want you to know we have the utmost appreciation and gratitude for you. We'll be more intentional about expressing that to you going forward.
As my grandma would say, charge it to our head,
not our
and
heart.
not to our heart.
Exactly. I want to get to calls to action because I have a call to action, and it comes with a video. So for those of you who are watching, you can see my call to action, and I'll talk our listening audience through it. So I was at my home, and I went out our back entrance, and I walked past a car. It was around 80 degrees on this day, and there was a dog inside the car by himself with the window rolled down just as much, I'd say about 5 inches. And the dog was howling and barking. And he appeared, I thought he was a German Shepherd. And so I'm looking around, I'm asking people outside. I'm like, do you guys know whose car this is? Whose dog is this? And they're like, we don't know. The dog has been in there since this morning. So I went and got some peanut butter and a wooden spatula, just in case he wasn't a good boy, but he was a good boy. I didn't even need it. I stuck my hand in the window. The car was very hot. So if it's 80 degrees outside, it's probably about 100 degrees inside. And he was very sweet. He licked my hand. I gave him a little peanut butter, and I broke in this man's car. I unlocked the door and got this dog out. I got his leash, which was in the car. I gave him water, and I just started knocking on, apartment 101, apartment 102, apartment 103, asking whose dog is this? Who left his dog in the car? Long story short, for a few hours, I couldn't find the dog's human. So the dog was in my place. I took the dog to play fetch. As you can see, he was a naughty little brat and just barked and made me throw the ball. But he was a Dutch Shepherd, and I wasn't familiar with his breed, a Dutch Shepherd. And my CTA is, don't be a shitty human being and leave your dog in a hot effing car. Even if it feels breezy to us, they are wearing a fur coat. So imagine sitting in a car and it's 100 degrees and you're in a fur coat. Even for 10 minutes, a dog can slip and have a heat stroke. The other thing is some people try to normalize keeping dogs outside. If you're cold, the dog is cold. If you're hot, the dog is hot. Again, they're in a fur coat. We have domesticated dogs. And it's just not okay. So when I posted this, of course, people started telling me their own stories about rescuing dogs from outside. These are innocent animals. Please be kind to these innocent animals. Some of it is ignorance. Jackie Reed and I are big animal advocates, and we are constantly DMing people who say, oh, I do that. I leave my dog here. I left my dog in the car. And some people just don't know. So we're trying to inform, not shame. So my CTA is please treat these dogs like they are 2-year-old toddlers, because that's what they are essentially. They have the mental capacity of a 2-year-old. They have the hearts of a 2-year-old. They just want to love and be loved. And you would never leave a 2-year-old in a hot car, nor would you ever walk past a hot car and see a 2-year-old in there and not do anything about it. I get on my soapbox a lot. Thank you for all your comments, by the way, loving my canine PSAs, but that is my call to action. Just be kinder to these animals. I'm not a cat person, but even cats, just be kind to animals. Don't be shitty human beings. So
even the schizophrenic
cats. Please go back and watch that episode. You can find it.
Tiff, can I ask, how did you? So did you find the human?
So the human, as you'll see in the video, I posted on it. I posted it on Instagram, but you won't see it here on the show. He was a worker. He was doing work for someone in one of the apartments. I don't think he was all the way together.
Okay.
He was an older gentleman. I think maybe a little bit of dementia. But when he saw me, I think he thought I was gonna like press charges or like be mean to him. So he was a little defensive, and he was like, I can't, because I had given the dog a squeaky toy. And like fed the dog, like made sure the dog was entertained.
Yes.
The first thing he said to me was, I can't pay you for this. You know what, sir? Time with the dog was enough.
I hear
but
it.
I didn't want to leave the dog in a hot car. You have to be careful about leaving a dog in a hot car. But the dog was very happy to see him. Tail wag. If the dog didn't want to go with him, he was not getting the dog back. If I felt there was some abuse or something. But the dog wagged his tail, ran up to him, and it was a happy reunion. And I think the man just didn't really think about, because he had been there in the morning when it was like 60 degrees and it got hotter. The sun changed position, and this poor dog was miserable in that car. So I'm happy I did it.
So the dog was like, "Thank you, Daddy, for the play
that
date."
Dog didn't even look back at me and say thank you. That dog was like, "Deuces, let's go. Thanks for the ball, deuces."
I'm going back to my human. See ya.
Yes. So
well, that was
I will
kind
always
of you,
advocate for animals, especially my puppies, especially pit bulls. I don't want to hear any pit bull hate. They're my favorite dog ever. Anywho, that's my soapbox for today, Andrew.
Thank you for that. I actually don't have a big one today. I really just the stories today really kind of moved me. Not kind of, they moved me. It just put back front and center the ways in which our women continue to put themselves, their bodies, their mental health, their life security, safety on the line to represent for our community, for their professions. And again, they don't think they're doing heroic tasks because they're going to work and they're doing a job, and they understand that obligation and responsibility, and they're trying to do it to the hilt. It isn't these individual journalists who are trying to make themselves a story. They're trying to cover the stories that matter. It is the dastard, disrespectful, near diabolical treatment that they receive on these places of work that then cause their individual stories to then be put into focus. But that's not what they're asking for. The beauty is that when it is brought to them, these women appear completely ready, prepared for the moments that they get thrust into. And I guess if I had anything, it would just be to lift them and cover them in prayer. We don't know what the days ahead hold. And I said this, I guess, last week around love offerings, particularly during this time where so many in our community are losing their ability to provide. That we just be thoughtful. If you're in a place of grace and you're in a place of maybe overflow, that we're thinking about how it is that we get resources back to our folks, because we're all we have. Yeah. So I'm going to lift that again.
Thank you for that. And just because you said this, I certainly don't want to leave out Black men. We have stellar examples of Black men in our community, starting with our own Andrew Gillum, who is an amazing father, often shares stories about being with his children, running them back and forth to school. And even RJ, Andrew's amazing wife, will admit it's rare that you'll ask kids, like, you want to go with mommy or daddy? Your kids are always like, daddy. Like all three of them are daddy's kids. And RJ is like, I ain't got no problem with it,
Right. See your deuces.
I actually
when y'all get
love
back.
that dynamic, to be honest, because it disrupts gender norms, and so I love it.
Oh my God!
But
it also means I don't get to eat a meal ever, because it's always devoured by the three of them.
He can't get a bite in before those kids. Whatever he got, they want it. So even this idea, like we're Black fathers, like all of that is born of white supremacy and disinformation. We certainly know Black fathers are amazing and necessary, and just Black men. We love y'all. So Black folks are under attack collectively, and we lock arms. And hopefully we can do that with all communities of color. We'll be bringing on other voices outside of the community, Latino voices, API voices, Indigenous voices, to dig into some of those topics in our coming episodes. So certainly please stay tuned for that. This was episode 98. I can't believe we're almost to episode 100. So please plan to tune into our 100th show, because it will be somewhat of a surprise and a celebration. Angela had to run. She is off to a press conference, but her call to action she gave to us to share with you, and that is to please tune into our live show this Saturday Friday, we'll be broadcasting live from the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual legislative conference from 5 to 7, and you can check that out on our YouTube.
Eastern Standard.
If you listen to this show after, you can still go back and check it out on YouTube and catch it then. Remember, we're available on all platforms, anywhere you get your podcasts, and YouTube. And if you're looking for more shows like this one, please check out other shows on Reason Choice Media. Of course, my girl Jamel Hill with Politics, who also did a really interesting column in The Atlantic this week. I encourage you to check it out. She spoke with Luke, that Luke, about censorship. Which I think was an interesting conversation because we, of course, remember when Luke in the 80s, the rapper, was himself censored. So a really interesting piece in Atlantic, to check that out. And she'll likely talk about it on Politics. There's, of course, Off the Cup with Essie Cup and the Now You Know with Noah DeBarrasso. Give those a follow. And don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our text or email list on nativeland.com. We are Tiffany Cross, Andrew Gillum, and Angela Rye. There are, we think, 404 days until these alleged midterm elections. And I've even heard your comments about me being so unhopeful about midterms. And people don't like when I say that because they think it'll depress the vote. No, we are going to fight and do everything we can and show up in droves for midterms. My doubt is that they will be free and fair elections. But as long as we keep the fight going and beat them back at every turn, perhaps we will overthrow an authoritarian government. So we'll keep talking about that here.
Yep. Welcome home. Welcome home.
Thank you for joining the natives. Intentional with the info on all of the latest. Rod, Gillum, and Cross connected to the statements that you leave on our socials. Thank you sincerely for the patience. Reason for your choice is clear. We're so grateful. Took the oath to execute roles. Yeah, faithful. Preserve, defend, and protect the truth, even if painful. Welcome home to all of the natives. We thank you.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media.